Okay, everyone, good morning. Welcome to the morning briefing from the Celtic Way for Tuesday, the 11th of what month is it, Ryan? March. We're in good stuff. It's been a long old day for me, but you're just up and ready to talk about Celtic. Nice to be back as well, actually. Been missing a few days. So, what have I missed? Any major fallings out? Has John clashed with Tony? Is that why those two aren't on today?
Not that I know of. I hope not. Well, if that has been the case, then I've certainly not
Need a
heard
bit of
about it. But
spice, Ryan. Come on, we need a bit of
uh, I,
spice.
I'm
Someone to
not.
throw a cat amongst the pigeons.
I'm not going to upset the apple cart this morning. That's for sure. I'm delighted to be back on as well. It's been a few days since I was on, but the last show that I was on was actually Sunday's game, right after Sunday's game against Hibs, which was a great win, a good performance from Celtic as well. But happy to be on this morning, Tuesday's morning briefing. Plenty to discuss. We know who Celtic are going to be playing in the Scottish Cup semi-final. We're linked with players. The Derby officials have been announced. There's loads to talk about, Hamish.
Yes, and we'll get on to talking about all of that in about 30 seconds, if that. Just first, a quick word from our sponsor. This Celtic Way video is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. They've got thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and the surrounding areas, so you're likely to find the one you need or want at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Tell us then, Ryan, who do we get in the Scottish Cup?
Well, we got probably, now, you don't want to tempt fate too much, but probably got the most favourable draw out of the teams that we could have got. Obviously, St Johnstone defeated Livingston 1-0 last night. I don't know if you've seen St Johnstone's goal
Oh,
from last night.
yes. I
From
got a hell of a fright, or not a fright, a lovely surprise earlier when I watched I stuck the highlights on because I thought, just in case anything crazy happened,
Mhm.
and I saw Graham Carey's goal, and that is goal of the season.
Yeah, it's an absolutely perfect goal. Probably one of the best goals you'll see on AstroTurf, to be honest, as well. But perfectly hit. Simo Valakari after the game was saying that the game needed a bit of magic in order to separate the two sides, and it certainly was. Former Celtic youth player as well, Graham Carey. I recognise his name. I remember his name being in and around Celtic. Well, that must be 10, 12 years ago now, but still doing a good job for St Johnstone. Livingston can feel pretty hard done by that they didn't get a penalty. I think in the first half it happened. It was pretty much a stonewaller. I think David Martindale's actually got an apology from the referee for not giving the penalty. It was that stonewall of a penalty. But yeah, it was. I didn't actually tune in to watch the game personally, but from what I heard, it was a pretty tight affair, and St Johnstone just came out on top. So Celtic face St Johnstone in the next round. You know, you look at the other semi-final, Hearts v Aberdeen. I think that'll be an absolute cracker at Hampden. And it's up to Celtic to just make sure they meet one of those two teams in the final by dispatching of St Johnstone in the semi-final.
Right, we might return to this because we can chat a wee bit about the Scottish Cup and how the rest of that campaign's looking for us. Can see people chatting about it, so I don't want to hold on too much longer. In the last, I think, probably half an hour, the officials for Sunday's derby have been announced. So Celtic versus Rangers, Sunday, 12:30. The referee will be Stephen McLean, everyone. I guess the next best headline is that John Beaton is on VAR. No comment there. Assistants Graham Stewart and Dougie Potter. Assistant VAR is Sean Carr. So Stephen McLean, the referee, John Beaton on VAR. Let us know what you make of that, everyone. It's one of those things with referees. There's not really a referee that we'd all get and go, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So it's Stephen McLean for the derby on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm sure he's had experience of this fixture before. He's been in and around Scottish football for years. To me, you know, it's just a name. To be honest, I don't get too bogged down by all the referee chat. If Celtic are good enough on the day, then I think they'll defeat Rangers and defeat them convincingly because they've got the far stronger side out of the two teams. So it's up to them to make sure that the referee doesn't get involved in the game, play their own football, and I think they'll be fine on the day. I'm pretty confident going into this game. You know, Rangers will have excursions against Fenerbahce at home on Thursday as well, so they've got all their eyes on that at the moment. But you know, Celtic have got a job to do. 3 wins until they retain retain their title. That'll be the main message coming from Brendan Rodgers. You're nearly at the finish line. Just make sure you go and get it now, and get it as soon as possible, because the sooner they can get that wrapped up, the sooner they can then focus on rotating the team even further, maybe bringing in some young players and really having full focus on the Scottish Cup semi-final and then hopefully the final at the end of the season.
How are we all feeling then, everyone, ahead of the derby? We're a good few days out from it. So I'm just intrigued to find out how you're all feeling. I mean, personally, I'm just really I've got so much confidence in this team. I thought Sunday was a pretty good display, all things considered. I know maybe some people wanted to see bigger score lines, and we've become accustomed to that this season with this team, especially at home. But I thought against a team in a 15-game unbeaten run, 11 wins in that run, including against ourselves, I just thought we completely nullified Hibs. And I know a lot of people saying Hibs were disappointing and didn't bring much to the game, and I agree with that. But I think a good part of that was down to us not allowing Hibs to bring anything to the game. I just thought it was a really controlled, measured performance. We almost kind of just suffocated Hibs whenever they had the ball and gave them very little to go off, apart from one chance they had in the first half where they moved the throw in 20 yards. And I think a Martin Boyle run in the second half that comes to nothing. That was the only two moments Hibs had in the entire game.
Yep, I think there's a weird narrative coming from this game, and it's not consistent with the game that happened at Easter Road, which is to be expected given, it's Celtic. I would expect this sort of narrative to come out given the club. I heard about how good Hibs were against Celtic at Easter Road, how much they nullified Celtic, even though Celtic got a wrongfully disallowed goal from Dyson Maeda with that whole VAR incident and intervening in the ball going out of play. But I'm not hearing the same from Celtic this weekend. I'm not hearing about how good Celtic were at nullifying an informed team and Hibs. I've heard about how poor Hibs have been, the fact that they didn't turn up for the game, etc. They had their 7,000 fans. Maybe the team didn't turn up the same way that the supporters did. But I thought Celtic controlled the game for large portions. They were strong. They were good defensively. Thought Jeffrey Schlupp again was a standout for Celtic. I think he's been a standout in most of the games that he's played for Celtic, bringing that Premier League experience. I think that relationship between him and Jota is only strengthening by the week. And I think we're coming to the right time where Celtic are playing Rangers. I think that'll be a great partnership between those two. Hopefully that can stay in place next season alongside the return of Kieran Tierney. But I think there was so many good performances around the team. Dyson Maeda doing what he does best, being a menace, but also being in the right place at the right time, anticipating the parried shot from Jordan Smith, which was a really good save. But it came right to Maeda, and he does exactly what you want him to do. You've seen the rejuvenation of Nicholas Kuhn. I thought he had his best game in a number of weeks on Sunday. And yeah, Jota's looking like he's going through the gears in preparation for this Glasgow derby coming up. I've just got a funny feeling, Hamish, that this Glasgow derby is going to be the real, not re-emergence of Jota, but the announcement that he's back at Celtic. This is the fixture that he wants to play in. It's probably one of the fixtures that he came back for because he had such a stranglehold on it the first time around. I just expect him to come. Yeah, I expect him to come good. I mean, he's already good at the moment, but to come even better coming into this game.
Because, I mean, I might be misremembering, but I think his first few derbies, he was kind of ineffective first time around, and then it just seemed to click, I think, the end of that first season, and he ended up having a really good record, scoring, really important goals. A 4-0 game, that chip, and he scored in the 3-2 win as well when he went round the goal to Alan McGregor, wearing his big, bright orange thing and just looking raging like he always is. And also the cup semi as well with the header. So Jota became a really reliable person in this fixture. So yeah, you may be right. I think, just to pick on what you said about Nicholas Kuhn, I agree. Certainly first half, I thought he maybe kind of grew out of the game a little bit in the second half, but I thought first half, the start of the game, that was like Nicholas Kuhn from the start of the season. And I think he's one of those players, I keep saying, people talk about Matt O'Reilly last season. Matt O'Reilly started the season really well. He kind of dipped for a wee period, just a little bit in the mid-season, a bit like Kuhn's done, and then Matt O'Reilly finished the season so strongly. And I predict Nicholas Kuhn's going to do the exact same. I think Dyson Maeda's pretty likely to win Player of the Year, but I think Nicholas Kuhn might put together a case again and might have people just considering it slightly, because I think we probably do forget how good Kuhn was at the start of the season, and I think he'll get back to that level, and hopefully that continues or starts on Sunday, because I thought first half, he's just like, every time Kuhn gets the ball, like, I'm off my seat. And there was times on Sunday where he was getting the ball and Johnson was overlapping and he was passing it to Johnson, and they've got a really good relationship, those two. But I was almost looking at it sometimes saying, just run with it, Kuhn, because he is, honestly, I can't remember many players, and Jota maybe one. Patrick Roberts was one for a period at the club when he got the ball, and you just always felt something was going to happen. So I think Kuhn's going to be a big player. The thought of that front three of Kuhn, Maida, Jota starting on Sunday against that Rangers back line is a very exciting one. And yeah, I agree, Pete, just saying, any dip in form is down to a schedule. I think that's fair enough, and that's why I say, I think with the weekend-to-weekend stuff, you'll see Nicholas Kuhn, and like better pitches as well. Like, I know that's a daft thing to say, but just get the better weather, better pitches. Even the Celtic Park pitch is looking a little bit poor at the moment. So when that improves, I think you'll see a better Kuhn. Yeah, but I mean, moving on to Sunday, Sean saying he feels like players owe us a performance after the Ibrox game. Wazaboy reckons we'll win comfortably. Rangers are garbage in comparison to us. Wombat saying they bullied us last time. We need to muscle up. Pete again saying, I think Brendan Rodgers want us to make a real statement on Sunday. Cousin Kenny reckons we're going to score 10. Okay, nice one. And Hazel, we're due a really good performance in a derby with a few goals. I do really think Celtic are going to fancy this and are not just going to want to win on Sunday. I think they're going to want to go and win really well and do what Rangers did to us at the start of the year, because that hurt us as fans. That will have really hurt the players that day. And I know Rodgers was keen to say revenge isn't a word that he likes or uses, but I do think there'll be an element of, this team made you guys look daft at the start of the year. Go out there with our own fans behind us and batter them, because you're capable of it. And I honestly, I'm not going to take anything for granted. I think it'll be a tough game, but I do think that's a possibility if we turn up and are right at it on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an anomaly, that game, when you put it next to the rest of the games this season. Even the first Glasgow derby against the two teams, there was a chasm between Celtic and Rangers in that first game. It came out of nowhere, almost as if, I don't even know if there was any ulterior motives. I don't know. There was that flu that was getting talked about at the time that was sweeping its way through the squad. I don't know if that had an impact on the players or it was just an off day in general. But I predict that they'll be back on form for this one. They've been in good form recently. They'll feel good about themselves that they got that win against Hibs. They kept a clean sheet in it as well and nullified everything that Hibs were throwing at them. They were, apart from Celtic, I think they were the informed team in the country, and Celtic made them look very ordinary on the day. So that's got to give them confidence going into this game, but they don't need to be up for it anymore. It's a Glasgow derby. These things take care of themselves, and they'll be annoyed about that last game. I do agree with the whole Rodgers won't see this as revenge, but he'll be drilling it into them and saying, look what happened last time. It's time to go out and make a statement. Go and win that league, but win the league in style. Essentially, you do win it if you win the game on Sunday. Well, I mean, it's already pretty much wrapped up already, but to, put a rubber stamp on it, basically. I just feel like Celtic will be up for it like you. And regardless of the team that gets picked, although I think probably 9 or 10 out of the 11 positions are already accounted for already.
I think all 11 are. I think all 11 are, mate, genuinely.
Depends on Callum McGregor, really, because of his injury. He came off with a slight hamstring injury in the second half of the game. So it'd be between him or, maybe Luke McCowan coming into the team and Arnott Engels playing in that number 6 role. But that's something that I really enjoyed seeing for the last sort of 15, 20 minutes. There was a switched ball out from the number 6 role that Arnott Engels was playing in the second half. And just the way that he was operating in that position made me think, I think maybe you're supposed to be a number 6 and you will be later on in your career, because he's got all the attributes to do that. He's strong. He's a keen runner. He's a strong runner as well. He's also a really good passer out from the back. That could be something that Celtic experiment with over the next few weeks. Maybe once the league's over, they can kind of experiment with him in the number 6 position ahead of next season, because I think that's an area that Celtic need to improve on, especially in Europe next campaign.
I just think without making this so simple, Sunday's game, I just think like at Celtic Park, where we've been so strong this season, the big question here isn't what the Rangers bring to the game. That's in the nicest possible way. It's kind of irrelevant what they bring to the game. It's about what we bring to the game. And if you see a Celtic turning up who are just at it, and we all know what I mean when I say Celtic being at it, slick passing, hungry to win the ball back. I think the first half on Sunday we were really at it. I know at times maybe we didn't create a lot of chances, but Hibs, the amount of blocks Hibs were getting. But I think if you see Celtic anywhere near their top level and fired up and winning the ball back and not being passive like we were in the last derby, and we're not going to be as passive because we're at Celtic Park. I just think if we turn up like that, I just think there's very little Rangers can do. I don't think Rangers are massively capable of stopping us when we're playing like that. And I thought we saw that in the first derby of the season. I guess the issue that you'd look at from the last couple of games is, albeit under a different manager, but that system they employed where they were kind of letting us have it at times, but also cutting off certain passes and allowing certain players to have the ball. To be fair, I thought Greg Taylor was a bit of a weak link in both games. Certainly in the cup final, he cost a couple of the big chances. And I think, Greg Taylor isn't going to start the game on Sunday. It's going to be Schlupp. And if you want a bit of confidence, everyone, you can always rely on Steve McGrory for a bit of this. Saying the following players did not start at Ibrox in January: Schlupp, Trusty, Engels and Jota. That plus the other 7 being better will mean a much improved performance from Celtic on Sunday. I'm pretty sure Celtic are going to be at it on Sunday, and if we are, I just think it's really difficult for Rangers. But looking forward to it. It's going to be something I don't know if people are aware of this too much or have been speaking about it, but it's going to be a bit of a throwback to the old derbies because you're going to have 2,500 Rangers fans there. I know people have their thoughts on that, but you can't deny that that's going to change the atmosphere. I think it's going to be a lot louder inside Celtic Park as a result of there being a few thousand away fans, and personally, I think it's going to add a lot to the game as well. So, after we had 7,000 Hibs fans at the weekend, you're going to have another big support on Sunday at Celtic Park.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I want it to be 7,000 Rangers fans at the weekend as well. The fact that it's 2,500 is good. It's good that there'll be away spectators in the ground. I think that's important because I think without it, the derby's very saturated. But long-term goal must be to bring it back to the way it was, if possible, or as close to the way it was, as good as the way it was, if possible. And the same has to be reciprocated at Ibrox. It's difficult though when Rangers have sold season tickets in those areas, so they would have to relocate them to different.
I think this is as far as you're going to go, but I think people will be surprised. Sorry, 2,500 might seem like a small amount in comparison to the old 7, but I think people will be surprised at certainly like at Ibrox, what 2,500, or I think it's 2,200, something like that. Celtic fans will be heard and make a lot of noise, and it'll be the same with the Rangers fans at the weekend. So while it won't be quite like the old days or like we saw it with Hibs at the weekend, I think it'll be a very different to even the those weird derbies we went through where it was like 900 away fans.
Yeah.
I think it'll feel a lot more like an old derby. It'll be like a European match, like Bayern Munich. You could hear their fans, couldn't you? And they had, I think, 3,000. So it's going to be similar to that. So I just personally think it'll add a lot to the game. I know not everyone feels like that, and everyone's got.
No, it's very divisive.
I know, and that's why I'm wary of hammering home the point too much. But I do think it's going to make for a pretty cool atmosphere again on Sunday. Certainly Celtic Park, I think, will be rocking.
Yeah, and this is me coming from a standpoint where I really enjoyed the games where there was no Rangers fans in them personally because of the magnitude of the games. That 3-0 game will go down as one of my favourite ever games to be at. It was just the way that game was. The games before it, leading up to the game, Rangers dropping points, Celtic getting on a bit of a run under Ange Postecoglou, the way that the sort of green haze fell on the pitch as it was a nighttime game, and Celtic really did come alive in that game, and the atmosphere was unlike anything. You've also got the 4-0 game that happened as well, where Jota get the chip. Hopefully more of the same on Sunday from Jota if possible, or better. But I'm happy enough that there will be Rangers fans at the game because I think it adds just a little bit more to the derby. The derby, it's a rivalry. You need to have you need to have opposing fans in order to really make that a derby. And for me, that's just my opinion. I know that there's a lot of people that are quite divisive about it in the comments. It's one that splits opinion, but that's what I grew up with, and I'd want it to be like that going forward.
Yeah, for me personally, it's less about Rangers fans being there on Sunday and, listening to some of their song, but having the Celtic fans at Ibrox for the last game of the season after we've won the league is going to be amazing and a chance to pile on more agony. But anyway, we can discuss that maybe a little bit more. Just on the cup draw, kind of touched on it, but St Johnstone, it's going to be a big Celtic support that day as well. I mean, we're going to have, I think virtually anyone who wants a ticket for that game will get one. I think we'll probably have 40,000 plus tickets for that.
Yeah, it'll be a really, I'm sure that St Johnstone will be offered an allocation. They'll try and sell that to the best of their abilities, but the vast majority of people at the game will be Celtic fans, and that's understandable. It might be the same for the final as well. Well, I would imagine Aberdeen or Hibs would ask for a big allocation,
Hearts.
But they'll be. Do you think it'll be? Aberdeen or Hearts. I can't believe I said that. It's because I've got Hibs in the brain. I've been speaking about them for the past week or so. This is what happens when you're only covering one game a week and you say the same name over and over. Can't make that mistake, especially not in Edinburgh. Hearts or Aberdeen, one of the two. But yeah, anybody that wants to go to that game, I think it'll go to a general sale, and there'll be as many people as possible. Everybody in the home cup ticket scheme will be sorted for that. I think people will buy tickets, and then some people might not even go, just so they're guaranteed maybe a chance of getting one for the final. That's the way it works sometimes. But I would hope that Celtic can sell out their allocation. I'm sure they will. It's a semi-final at hand, and Scottish Cup going for the treble. By the time that comes around, the league, will hopefully be all but done, if not already done, and they can focus on that game fully. Big game. Doesn't matter the opposition that they're playing against. Hoping that it's not like I'm hoping that St Johnstone don't get a sort of like Wigan-esque sort of lift from the Scottish Cup, the way that Wigan did with the FA Cup 10, 12 years ago. I remember that they were in a bit of a relegation battle. They actually got relegated that season from the Premier League, but they really were buoyed by how well they did in the FA Cup, and they actually beat Manchester City in the final. Hopefully that's not the same, and Celtic can do a job on them and put them out in the semis.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, funnily enough, looking at the league fixtures coming up and potentially maybe slightly premature, but we're getting to that point where we could win the league. And I think that at the moment, the venue that's looking most likely is McDiarmid Park in St Johnstone. We play them on Sunday, the 6th of April. And I think basically if we win the derby, beat Hearts, and Rangers were to win their two games, I think it's Dundee away and Hibs at home, which looks a difficult one, then we'd be looking at winning it or drawing, I think, at St Johnstone on the 6th of April to win the league. So a couple of games against St Johnstone in April. The Cup semi's not been confirmed yet. They quite like the kind of 5:30 kickoff recently, haven't they? But that's maybe more the League Cup, so I'm not sure exactly when they'll go for that game. The other thing I just wanted to touch on was a report last night on young Dundee United player, 18-year-old Owen Stirton, who is out on loan at the moment from Dundee United at Montrose. I think 6 goals and 7 or 8 appearances since his January loan move, and being reported that we scouted him. Tosh McKinley watched him at the weekend when Montrose drew 0-0 with Kelty Hearts. So not a great game to go and watch a striker play in, but it's believed that Stirton is being viewed as a potential replacement for Daniel Cummins, who's heading to West Ham, we think, at the end of the season, at the end of his contract. So, he's young, as I say, 18-year-old Stirton. I've never heard of him prior to today, but he did score for Dundee United in the Premiership on his debut against Ross County in November, and potentially a future B-team player, and that makes him a potential first-team player as well.
Yeah, do you know, before this podcast, me and you were speaking, and we were saying we've not really seen too much about this player. But now that I think about it in my head, I'm thinking about a young player that's made his debut for Dundee United, and I'm not even making this up. I have actually watched this goal. I'm sure it was a header that he scored on his debut. It was a really good header. If I remember correctly, he's quite a tall player for his age, 18-year-old, but he is quite lanky for his age. I remember him coming on for Dundee United. Dundee United have got a really good academy. They like to bring through their own players and try and get them in the first team as soon as possible. He's clearly getting a good loan move out at Montrose as well in League One, I believe. And he's scored 6 goals in 7 appearances in League One. So a really good loan spell for him, someone that Celtic should be watching. I think Celtic should be watching these young players that are 17, 18 that are maybe out on loan and doing well in the lower divisions, because they could do a job in the B team. And then if you're doing a good job in the B team, you could potentially make that move to the first team if there's potentially an injury crisis, or you do so well that you outgrow the B team. So I'm quite fine with this. It's disappointing that Daniel Cummins seems to be leaving to go to West Ham. That was the talk on deadline day. But if a player isn't going to sign a new deal, and if a deal only goes to a player late, as is what I heard, I think he was only offered a deal a couple of days before that interest was made clear by West Ham to Celtic, then it's difficult to keep a hold of these players. The lure of the Premier League, regardless if you're playing there or not, you're playing in their under-21s team, will be too strong for players. And Celtic are just unfortunately caught in the middle of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's kind of accepted that Cummins is going to be leaving. I don't think anything's actually been officially confirmed, though, hasn't it? But there was certainly talk about him even leaving in January to go to West Ham. So I expect that's something that's going to happen at the end of the season, and Celtic clearly looking for someone else to come in. I think I read that we're looking kind of inside the club as well to see if anyone's willing to step up. But that's just a name, Owen Stirton, a name to keep a wee eye on. Yeah, what else is on your mind today, Ryan? What you've been writing about?
Well, today I'm going to write about somebody who I think is going under the radar. Nobody is in any doubt of how good he's been this season. It kind of just gets taken for granted because we expect him to be a 7
you're going to say
10. Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yeah. 150th appearance at the weekend.
I mean, that's incredible given the amount of injuries he's had that have started his Celtic career. For a guy that came in on deadline day, that was a last minute signing. Spurs only gave the green light to that deal very late on when they couldn't actually sell him outright to go and give him game time. I think he made his debut against Ross County, scored a deflected goal. Start as you mean to go on.
Jota's debut as well that day.
Yeah, just what a player. That deadline day is one of the best in terms of, Giakoumakis, what he brought to the team in the 1.5 years that he was there, Jota in the 2 spells, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. It's no surprise when Cameron Carter-Vickers plays that Celtic's win percentage is so high. I don't know the exact number, but it'll be in the 70s. And then it'll drop when he comes out of the team. He is colossal. I use that word so many times when I'm talking about him in my match ratings. But he just goes under the radar because people expect him to do well. Now they expect him to put in a good performance. That's why the mistake that he had against Club Brugge was so much of a surprise, because he never makes mistakes. You can maybe count on one hand the amount of mistakes he's made. And he's
Lazio and Club Brugge, and I'd probably struggle genuinely for
those
any
are
more.
the only 2. There was one goal that was, I think there was a goal that he was playing a guy onside in Europe, but if you're only making Celtic players are more likely to make mistakes in Europe because they're playing against better opposition, but he's head and shoulders above everybody else in the Scottish domestic league. He's at an age where I don't think that Celtic will sell him now. I'm tempting fate a wee bit there, but I think he's quite happy with his lot at the moment. He's happy being one of the main leaders. He's happy winning trophies, winning trebles every sort of 1-2 seasons. And the way it's going, if he stays at Celtic till he's 32, 33, he will be seen as a legend at the club with his trophy haul, because he'll have so many trophies to talk about. One of the, in my opinion, and I've said this on the briefing before, he's the best defender I've seen in watching Celtic throughout my life. I know that we had Virgil van Dijk as well, who was immense, who was essentially a cheat code at the back for Celtic under Ronnie Dyle and Neil Lennon. But Carter-Vickers, to me, is just so integral to everything positive about Celtic. He is... he's irreplaceable at this point. He's just so good, and long may that continue at the back for Celtic. He makes other players better.
I couldn't agree more, and it's funny because I saw the tweet coming in from Celtic last night, and I'd had a few beers at the time I was out last night, and when you've had a few beers, sometimes you just feel a bit more strongly about things and a bit more positive about things and all of that stuff. And I just saw the tweet coming in, and I just thought, I love that guy. Like, he's just he's just like been such a strong player for us. Right from the first game when he came in against Ross County, I remember him making a difference in that first game already to the defence, and that kind of impact he's had on the back line hasn't, relented at all when he plays. And he's never been nominated for an award. Never been one of the, I think, 4 players nominated by the PFA, and he won't be this season either. I'm pretty sure in saying that. And it's just, I know that probably doesn't matter that much to him. Maybe it does, but I've met him a few times, and he's the nicest guy ever, and the most kind of humble guy ever. And you can see that when he plays. I can't say enough good things about him. He's just made such a difference, and I think to the extent where you mentioned the fact that the deal was signed really late on, I think 15 minutes before the window ended that first summer. If we hadn't signed him, then I think the last few years would have been different at Celtic, and I know he's not been responsible for everything. We've had so many good figures: Callum McGregor, Brendan Rodgers, Ange Postecoglou, Jota Kyogo, all of these people, Dies and Maida. But that backline, we would have lost a lot more matches and conceded a lot more goals if Cameron Carter-Vickers hadn't been signed. I just think he's been immense, and even at the weekend, you don't talk about Carter-Vickers. Nobody talks about him. Everyone talks about Dies and Maida with good reason, and Jota and Adam Ida at the weekend. Nobody talks about Cameron Carter-Vickers, but Carter-Vickers again at the weekend was just immense. He was just so solid, doesn't make mistakes, defends things so well, but you just become accustomed to seeing it, that it doesn't even register with you anymore. But it should, because he's just, game to game, he is just imperious for us.
Yeah, I'm trying to shake off that, just taking him for granted, because, you never know. As much as I say that he could stay at the club for the rest of his career, he's more than good enough to play in the Premier League. I actually think it's the fact that he's not the tallest centre-back is maybe one of the reasons why he hasn't got that move back down south, which is unfortunate, because, you've got Martinez that plays for Man United when he's not injured, of course. He's a lot smaller than Carter-Vickers. I think he would walk it down there. I actually think he'd be a great player for Spurs, and he was the one. They were the ones that sold him. Not to give Ange Postecoglou any more ideas, but
there's a snobbiness though about Carter-Vickers, because they view him as a bit of a bomb scare because he had a few games for Spurs, and the Club Brugge mistake again would be getting shared wide. So that was one of the. I think it might be one of the things that keeps Carter-Vickers with us,
I hope so.
Because you're right. I really hope he does stick around, and I think you're right. I think he will as well, but. You're stunned watching him that, again, there's just no interest in him, because he could play in the Premier League comfortably. He could play for the majority of teams in that league and be solid. But for some reason, no one wants to go for him, and we're obviously so glad about that, because we all know how good he is.
Yeah, and not that he's a secret that's been kept, but it's like one of those guys that we're quite happy to have him while he's here. We're delighted that he's here and plying his trade for Celtic. Just I know we'll be wrapping up the show in a couple of minutes, but I think of those games, particularly against Rangers. There's 2 that come to mind immediately in terms of backs to the wall performances. The first one is the 2-1 where he scored. Him and Starfelt were imperious that day. Absolutely. I think they won the league that day because of those 2 players, backs to the wall performance. And the second one was when he was playing through the pain barrier at Hampden. Everybody kind of knew that was going to be his last game for the season, when he was going to go and get that operation that would keep him out until pre-season. That was a final stand. That was a last stand for Carter-Vickers.
Yeah.
I sometimes go back and watch that game, because you need to remember yourself. He was injured. Like there was a chance that he might not even play in these games, but he pushed through the pain barrier to win the game for Celtic.
Yeah.
And he's just an absolute hero to the Celtic support, and long may he continue to be in that back line, because he is the back line. He keeps it together.
Yeah, it's still one of the coolest things I've seen in Celtic history, was him playing that game and then just signing off for the next 3 or 4 months, rest of the season, start of the next, and having 2 more trophies under his belt by the time he returned. Okay, Ryan, thanks for coming on today and chatting to me. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Plenty more over on the website. please get involved there. Ryan and the team have been writing plenty over there, so there's loads to get involved with there. We will return this time tomorrow to chat a bit more about all things Celtic. Speak to you then.